In an act of heroic defiance against the oppressive tyranny of Donald Trump, the leadership of Harvard University has bravely declared that no matter what pressure Trump brings against them, they will not surrender their constitutional right to be the worst people in the country. The conflict between the university and the administration began after hundreds of Harvard students flooded the campus calling for genocide against the Jews. Further investigation suggested the students may have picked up their anti-Semitic ideas from what they learned in such Harvard classes as Studies in Anti-Semitism, in which the final exam required students to flood the campus and call for genocide against the Jews. Finally, then Harvard President Claudine Gay refused to denounce the anti-Semitic actions and was forced to resign when the board discovered she wasn't really gay. That just happened to be her name. Trump reacted cruelly, threatening to deprive Harvard of billions of dollars in federal funding if the university administration does not at least try to demonstrate they possess something vaguely resembling human decency. In order to keep the federal dollars flowing, Trump says, Harvard's leadership and faculty would have to, 1, stop hating Jews, 2, stop teaching their students to hate Jews, and 3, hire professors who will introduce students to ideas other than hating Jews, or at least hint that such ideas exist, or at least refrain from screaming at the students and calling them names when they wonder aloud whether such ideas might exist or if the whole intellectual world resembles the flaming, hate-filled hellscape of Harvard University. But Harvard's current president, Adolf Ratbag, declares that he absolutely refuses to let a fascist like Trump bully him into humane behavior. In a statement that sounded better in the original German, President Ratbag shook his fist at Shlomo Judenstein, an invisible imaginary enemy who has followed him around since childhood, and shouted, quote, "In a free society, our greatest university cannot compromise our right to sink into a morass of intellectual degradation based on false premises. We have a sacred responsibility to mold America's best and brightest into dark, gnarled souls reminiscent of images of the damned in medieval paintings of the Last Judgment. It was one thing when Obama insisted we deprive male students of their due process rights whenever they got accused of sexual malfeasance by some girl who once got so drunk she slept with the entire crew team. It was another thing when Biden declared that Title IX required us to give equal treatment to women and men who say they're women, and a pair of poodles who were dressed up in pink sweaters and adorable fluffy hats by a 6-year-old who wanted to pretend they were women. At least those demands were in keeping with our undying commitment to sexual perversity and moral turpitude. But when a thug like Trump demands we have to replace our sterling array of professors who are morally deformed leftist troglodytes with teachers dedicated to shaping young minds to the good, he has crossed the line. As far as Harvard University is concerned, Trump would be worse than Adolf Hitler if Adolf Hitler were a bad guy, unquote. To further demonstrate the university's heroically unyielding stance, President Ratbag released this year's Harvard syllabus to the media. The syllabus promises that the university will continue to provide such classes as Western Civilization 101, What It Is and How to Destroy It, Introduction to Shakespeare and the King James Bible, How They Can Light Our Way If Only We Set Them on Fire, and Giving Up Whiteness, in which students will stop using any device invented by a white male beginning on the first day of class at noon and ending around 12:05 because, let's face it, those bastards invented everything. The Trump administration says it will continue to withhold funds until Harvard not only changes the syllabus, but also cancels a planned musical based on Mein Kampf and changes the school slogan back to Veritas instead of, "Look out, there's a Jew sneaking up behind you." Pledging resistance, President Ratbag and his administration have taken refuge in an underground bunker where they plan to watch the movie Downfall over and over in the hope it inspires them with some fresh ideas. Trigger warning. I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back, and on this blessed Good Friday, the vast right-wing conspiracy known as Klavanon continues. And speaking of being blessed, pre-order The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness, which explains why The Silence of the Lambs is a better Christian witness than God's Not Dead 12. This time, he's really not dead. Seriously, you will love this book. I promise you will love this book. And if you pre-order now, we do have a deal where you get to go to heaven. I'm just making that up, but I'm hoping you might fall for it. And if you leave a comment, but please pre-order the book. It makes a big difference to the publisher. And if you leave a comment wherever you are watching or listening, and that comment is despicable in every possible way, morally, if it's racist, sexist, just low. If it's just kind of morally low, we'll read it on the air because that's what we do here. Today's comment is from Banstar2. He says, I can happily say that I've pre-ordered The Kingdom of Cain, but I can also say that I'm frightened that I'll hear the Trump happiness montage upon opening the book. That actually doesn't happen. We have the book right here, and I can open it right here in front of you.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Okay, that only happens with every 10th copy sold. Today's episode, Does the Left Hate America? Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Plus, Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. And get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and more importantly, learn how to care for them. Whether you're seeking privacy, shade, or natural beauty for your yard, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Their in-house experts are ready to help you make the perfect selection. No green thumb required. This sounds good. I like this. I would like to do this. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals, and listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code Klavan at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Klavan at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code Klavan. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Klavan to save today. You got to learn how to spell it. It's Klavan. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Chapter 1, Does CNN Hate America? Now, sometimes when you're reading a book or watching a movie or a play, there's a single scene that sums up some important theme in the work, and you can talk about it forever. I've talked many, many times about the mad scene in Hamlet, which I just think predicts the next 400 years of philosophical errors. And this week, Trump had a meeting with the El Salvadorian president, Nayib Bukele. And this is important because a lot of the criminals who are here illegally and are being shipped out are being put in the prison that is in El Salvador, which is a very, very tough prison. And it comes at this moment when rogue left-wing federal judges are trying to shut down the Trump agenda, most importantly by issuing orders declaring that he doesn't have the right to do what the president has a constitutional right to do, which is secure our country. And a lot of this has come to center by getting rid of people who are not supposed to be here and getting criminals out of the country who shouldn't be here. And a lot of this has come to center around Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is an El Salvadoran citizen who broke into our country illegally. He is alleged by in a very convincing manner to be an MS-13 member. It's not proved, but he denies it. He is alleged to be a wife beater, but I think the MS-13 thing is, there's just a lot of proof. He turned up with a roll of bills that were marked in ways that the MS-13 marks their bills and all this stuff. So he was ordered deported, but a court put a withholding order. This is before Trump. He was ordered deported. A court put a withholding order on his deportation because he was in danger from a rival gang, as you sometimes are if you are a gangster. And he got swept up in the Tren de Aragua guys from Venezuela who were shipped out to El Salvador, and a federal judge in Maryland, Judge Paula Zinnes, demanded that the government facilitate and effectuate his return. And at the same time, this rogue judge, James Boasberg in D.C., says he wants to begin contempt proceedings against the administration unless they prove that, they give scores of Venezuelan men deported under the Alien Enemies Act a chance to challenge their removal, which is also not in the act as far as I can see. And so anyway, Bukele is this guy, shows up in a cool sweater and a black suit, and he calls himself the coolest dictator in the world. And he came into El Salvador, which was a complete, utter gangsterocracy. I mean, you couldn't walk on the streets without asking the gang's permission. He suspended human rights. He locked them up in this tough prison, and he has cleaned up Dodge City. There's no question about it. And I like Bukele because I think he did what had to be done in his particular situation. Lincoln suspended freedom of speech and habeas corpus, trying to stop the Civil War from unfolding. And that went to the Supreme Court, who said only Congress could do that, and then Congress did it. But I also want to say, in all honesty, you have to be careful. Remember, the left would happily declare racism and climate change an emergency. They did. They tried. Sherrod Brown and Cory Booker introduced a bill declaring that racism was a public health crisis, which, if it were accepted, would have given the government special powers forever, basically. Then this was supported by the usual suspects, Mazie Hirono and Ben Cardin, Ralph Warnock, Richard Blumenthal, Debbie Stabenow. These are all people who would take your rights away by declaring a steady state thing. Everybody hates one another. That's part of human nature. And they would do that. And Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC tried to pass a resolution declaring climate change a public health, a national emergency. And that was supported by Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and also Cory Booker, the dumbest man in Congress. And Kristen Gillibrand, Amy Klobuchar. So these are all people who would declare an emergency. So we have to be careful with our rights, right? This is not El Salvador, but I think Bukele in his situation did what had to be done. So at this meeting, he has this meeting, the press is there, and the press starts saying, when are you going to bring back Garcia, bring me the body of Garcia back from El Salvador, because at one point somebody said that we shipped him out by mistake. So Trump turns to Steve Miller, who is he's one of my favorite MAGA people. He is articulate, he's intelligent, he's aggressive. And this is how Steve Miller answered the press about Ortega being thrown out of the country. Cut 5.
2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13.
Now, like I said, I love Steve Miller. I loved him in the first administration. I think he's just great, but he's pushing it here. He is pushing it here. What the Supreme Court, the judge said she wanted the government to effectuate and facilitate bringing Abrego Garcia back. And the Supreme Court said the district's court order, most of the district's court order remains in effect, but requires clarification on remand. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. So the blessings on Miller, but still, I think he was pushing it there a little bit. But what they were saying is you have to facilitate it. But what does that mean, right? The guy is an El Salvadoran citizen who is here illegally. So if Bukele is ready to send him back. I guess we have to send a plane or something like that to facilitate it. But Bukele says he's not sending him back. Marco Rubio, I thought, made a much stronger point. Here's what Rubio said, cut 6.
I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
Now, that to me is absolutely true, and this needs to be cleared up. The federal judiciary is not in the Constitution, with the exception of the Supreme Court. Congress creates the federal judiciary. It should be able to pass a law limiting their scope of power, so they can't just declare that all of, the whole government has to do what they say just because they happen to be in D.C. or in Maryland or wherever they are. That to me is utterly ridiculous. And what I think that the Republicans should do is they should propose such a law to tell, even though they won't get it past the filibuster in the Senate, they should propose such a law just to let the judges know, Trump's going to win the midterms. I'm telling you this, and I don't mean to give anything away. It's a spoiler alert. He's going to win the midterms. He's going to add to his majority in the midterms, and those judges should know that they're willing to do that. And if they don't do it, John Roberts needs to sack up. I'm sorry. He needs to say, you can't just go and shop around and find an Obama judge and then, just stop the entire government cold, because it's ridiculous. So, all right, that's the legal stuff. But here's the thing. Bukele and Trump point to Trump's amazing success at closing the border. And don't forget, Alejandro Mayorkas said the border was secure. He said this to Congress. He lied. Biden said he didn't have the power. He lied. Trump came in and he has closed the border solidly. And the question becomes, now, why isn't this the story? So here's Bukele and Trump talking about Trump's incredible success in closing the border in, like I said, about 15 minutes, cut 3.
What they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin, what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it.
Thanks. Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
All right, so this to me was the biggest question. The biggest question is, does CNN hate our country? I mean, does the news media hate our country? And here's Dana Bash. She was very upset. You could tell looking at her, she's very upset. Here's her reaction, cut 4.
I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing. That said, I want to focus on the news that we heard.
All right, so now there's the question. Trump says he thinks that CNN hates our country, and Dana Bash says, no, it's obvious we don't hate our country. And I think this needs to go to an impartial judge, namely me. And here is the answer to this question. The question, it's the wrong question. Trump has a tendency to go for the hyperbole, and he says they hate our country. I don't care whether they hate our country or not. I doubt Dana Bash wakes up hating America. My question is, do they love our country? Because this is important. This is an important distinction in almost all the arguments we have with the left. We say, oh, they hate this, they hate that. But the question is, do they love our country? There's a very, very famous poem by Sir Walter Scott, which begins with these words. Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself hath said, this is my own, my native land, whose heart has never within him burned, as home his footsteps he hath turned from wandering on a foreign strand. Is there a person who is so dead inside that he doesn't love his native country? We are built, made, formed to love our homeland. It's like your mom. I remember having this argument with the guys on a backstage once where I just said, no, you don't love your country because it's right. You don't love your country because it's good. First, you love your country because it is your mother country. That is why you love it. Now, your mother may become demonic, and then you have to leave her behind, as many good Germans did when Hitler took over Germany. But still, you are built to, that is a natural human thing. And if you can remember back to the George W. Bush's wars on terror, when the press started saying, why are people wearing these flag pins? And Katie Couric said, I'm worried about this patriotism. She actually said that. See, this is the thing. So how can we know whether they love America or not? And after all the eloquence from Steve Miller and all the common sense from Marco Rubio and everything Bukele said, Donald Trump asked to me the perfect question. This is cut 7.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility.
That's a really good question. Why don't they celebrate the fact that he's making the country safer? Why don't they celebrate the fact that he's sending murderers and gangsters and these gangsters, you know, this is not like cute gangsters like in the movies. These guys are incredibly brutal. I mean, incredibly evil people. And millions of illegals entered our country during the Joe Biden presidency, if that's what we can call it. And the president has the right to deport them. And he's been citing the Alien Enemy Act of 1798. And people on the news, because they lie, keep saying that's in case of an invasion or a war. This is what it says. It says, when there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion, how can we not think that these people marching in unvetted into our countries by the millions is not a predatory incursion? It gives Trump the right to send them home. So what I want to know is, when Joe Biden was president, and when Alejandro Mayorkas was telling us the border was secure, and Joe Biden was telling us that he didn't have the power to, why didn't anybody ever say to him, is this good for our country? Because if you love your country, you don't just not want bad things to happen, you want good things to happen. Why was it good for these people to come marching into our country? I know we were racist for thinking they shouldn't. I know we were evil and nationalistic and Christian nationalists and all those terrible, terrible things, which I am an actual Christian nationalist, but still, I know we were terrible for not wanting them. But why was it good that they should come? I mean, Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, and I don't know what has gone wrong with Maryland, that judge is from Maryland as well. He's in El Salvador meeting with Brego Garcia, and he sits down with him and he's holding his hand. I mean, ladies, find a man who looks at you the way Democrats look at alleged gangsters. I think you'll have a happy life. But that's not what they're doing. It's not what these people are doing that makes me feel they hate America. It's what they don't do that makes me feel they do not love America. Bukele puts it right. He said, this is what he says, is cut 2.
In fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. Yeah. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already.
I mean, this is it. Why don't they care about the 350 million people who don't want to be killed by murders? It's like, surely just by the numbers, nothing wrong with saying maybe this guy didn't get due process. We should, if they gave him due process, literally what would happen is they'd bring him back to America. They'd send him to an immigration court where you get kind of limited due process, and then they'd send him back again. They'd prove that he was, here illegally, which he was, and they'd send him back again to wherever they wanted to. El Salvador. He's an El Salvadoran citizen. Hopefully Bukele will simply refuse to send him back, in which case we can't facilitate anything. And why is the senator going down to Maryland, going down to El Salvador? He's from Maryland, going down to El Salvador to hold hands with this guy who's got 13 tattooed on his knuckles, instead of talking about Rachel Morin, who was murdered by an illegal in Maryland, in his state, in what has been called one of the most brutal murders in the history of the state. So Trump brings in Patty Morin, this victim's mother, and she tells this story, and I'm not going to play that part of it because it's horrific. And look, we all have imaginations. We know what horrific looks like. But for 1 minute, you can hear the press is humbled just a little bit, some of them. And listen to this exchange as she's walking out the door. This is the mother of a woman who was brutally murdered in Maryland, Chris Van Hollen's state. So while he's down there, holding hands with this guy with the 13 on his knuckles, she comes in and tells this story, and this is the press as she walks out, her exchange with the press as she leaves. Cut 15.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. Please tell the truth. Exactly. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell how violent it really is. This is about protecting our children. It's more than just politics or votes or just anything. It's about national security, protecting Americans, protecting our children. Thank you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Sorry for your loss. God bless you. And she says, tell the truth, which is actually a journalist's job. And if 350 million people are being your people, this is our country. These reporters are in our country. Yes, they should be prejudiced toward our country because they are in our country, because they are citizens of our country, because they're supposed to love our country. The people we elect are supposed to serve our country. They may not hate our country, but they do not love our country. CNN does not love our country. And Dana Bash cannot say that she does when they're pouring this much coverage into a guy who is alleged MS-13 gang member who was sent back to El Salvador because he's an El Salvadoran citizen who was here illegally. So he was deported legally. And that's what they're covering, but they are not covering these crimes. They may not hate our country, but they do not love our country, which is more important. Have you checked your home title lately? Neither have I. Most homeowners never do. But with the growing amount of digital scams targeting property owners, it's more important than ever. With modern technology, criminals have found an alarming way to steal your home equity. They simply forge your signature on a document, add a fake notary stamp, pay a small county fee, and just like that, your home title gets transferred without your even knowing it. Once they control your title, they can take out loans against your equity or even sell your property entirely. The worst part, you might not discover anything's wrong until you receive an unexpected collection notice or foreclosure letter. I had that happen to me once. I got a foreclosure letter. I had no idea what was going on because I was out of the country. It is a terrible thing. You do not want that to happen. Don't wait until it's too late. Take a moment right now to verify your home title status and protect what's likely your biggest investment. Use promo code Klavan at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now. Use promo code Klavan. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code, how do you spell it? It's Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Chapter 2, Does Maine Hate Women? Now, this is the same question I have in regards to women and transgender people. The exact same question. It's not whether they hate women. I want to know that they love women who not only are half the world, but are part of the system of creation, right? They are every creation story in the history of humankind begins with the creation of man and woman. And sometimes the woman comes out of the man, like in the Bible, but always the first two people are a man and a woman for reasons that should be obvious to anybody who knows anything. But if you're over 12 years old, you should know why that happens. Okay. In Britain's top court, by the way, their Supreme Court, and Britain is in big trouble in terms of common sense and freedom and Western values, but their top court has ruled that only those born female can be considered women, a landmark judgment which excludes transgender women from the legal definition and paves the way for title limits on female-only spaces and services. And my response to that is, no duh, right? Right? Only women are women. Okay. But not in Maine. Trump says that states have to keep men in skirts out of women's spaces, which to me is like, throughout all of history, a man walks into a woman's space in a skirt, says, "Oh, I'm a woman," he'd be just carried away and never seen again, right? So he says that states have to keep men in skirts out of women's spaces and out of their sports, or they will lose their federal funding. Now, as he announced this, Maine's governor, Janet Mills, is in the room, and this is the exchange between them. This is cut 10.
Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
But Trump is 100% in the right. The people in Maine do not want this. And so why is the governor of Maine, the elected governor of Maine, not giving the people what they want? They elected her to serve them. That is the way this works. You don't get elected and then you become a god. We don't have that in our Constitution, that you're not elected god, you're elected governor, and you're supposed to govern the state in the way representing the people in that state. And I think it's like an 80%, 80 to 20 majority that doesn't want. Why would they? Why would they want men in women's sports, in children's locker rooms? It's disgusting. I mean, you see these 12, 13-year-old girls who walk in and there is a guy undressing in their locker room, and that's supposed to be okay. And once again, they have all these high-minded reasons for what they say. Here's Governor Mills telling her wonderfully high-minded reason for allowing men to come in to girls' locker rooms. Cut 11.
My issue is about the rule of law, pure and simple. It's not about transgender sports. It's about who makes the laws and who enforces the laws. I read the Constitution. The Constitution says that the president, the chief executive, shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. It doesn't allow him to make laws out of whole cloth by tweet or Instagram post or press release or executive order. That's just fundamental law, and I stand for the rule of law and the separation of powers.
She is lying. And here's how I know she is lying. Barack Obama declared that his government his DOJ would not enforce the Defense of Marriage Act, which I said at the time, whether you agree with the Defense of Marriage Act or you don't agree with it, it's the law. It was passed by Congress under Clinton. He should enforce it. That's his job. To say, oh yeah, well, the Congress made the law, but I don't enforce it, is to be the king. Show me the clip. Show me the clip where Janet Mills says, oh man, he's acting like he can. Show me the clip where she protested that Biden wasn't enforcing the law at the border. She doesn't give a damn about the law. She says, oh, there's only 2 transgender athletes, but that raises the same question as the Garcia case. If there are only 2 of them, why are you spending your time discussing this issue instead of discussing the issue of protecting women who make up half your state and are a good thing in themselves? It is a good thing that there are men and women. This is to me the key. It is either you think it is a good thing that there's America and good things should happen there, and you think it is a good thing that there are men and women and good things should happen between them and to them, or you've got all these high-minded reasons why you don't have to do this. And I've said this, I know, a million times, but this is an attempt to eliminate the category of woman and to eliminate the category of gender, but women most especially. The people who think it's a war against men are wrong. They just want to get rid of men so that women can become men because they want to get rid of women first and foremost as women. There's a book coming out, the Washington Examiner reports, there's a book coming out called The Stronger Sex, What Science Tells Us About the Power of the Female Body. And it says it argues that women are actually the physically stronger sex, but that culture brainwashes them to think they are weak. If you're married, go home and take a look at your wife's wrist and look at your wrist. I mean, you're culturally brainwashed. They want women to stop existing as women, and the erasure of women and their replacement by men is only the last step of the slow erosion of the rights of the feminine, of feminine persons who are not effeminate persons, who are men who act like women. They are feminine persons who are women who act like women. Barry Weiss has her free press, and she holds debates. And I think they call them red state debates. I can't remember, but they had a working woman on. I'm sorry I don't know the names of these people. I tried to find them, but I couldn't. And they talk about, one of the things that feminism did, and remember, feminism is not feminism. Feminism is leftism with a skirt on. It has nothing to do with supporting women. So by letting women into the workplace, wages stagnated because now you have two people that you can hire instead of one, so you don't have to negotiate. And now it takes two incomes to support a family. And a single woman has to dedicate herself to supporting herself because married, it's not that easy to get married anymore. It's not that easy to find a guy who wants to have a woman who's working just as hard as he is instead of making a home for him and creating a family with him and raising kids as a mom, which is a different role than a father. And here is this woman who has made a success of herself. She's a single working woman. And here's her reaction to that in this Free Press debate. It's called Swing State Debates. I'm sorry. This is cut 8.
I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I would love to be a homemaker and a wife. I would love to be able to live on a homestead and go milk my cow and take the eggs out of the chicken coop and have one baby in the belly and on my hip and another toddler coming behind me. That's like my dream, but I can't do that because the way the economy is set up is I'm forced to work. I'm forced to get an education, a higher education, a college degree in order to make enough money that I can be financially independent and afford my own home or my own rent or my own gas or my own groceries, my own insurance. And it's extremely difficult to do that. And it's very isolating as a woman when you have to do all of that all on your own and you can't find somebody that you can outsource some of those chores and financial responsibilities like you would with a spouse. So no, being a single working woman absolutely sucks. It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. I would go back to the 1950s in a second just so I wouldn't have to deal with this.
All right, so that's very definitive, all right? Now, you can look for a long time before you hear a man say, what I want is to walk around with a baby in my hip and one in my belly and one, you'll find one, but he'll be behind bars somewhere. And she is speaking as a woman. She's speaking about things that women want, that are special. As Lila Rose told us in the interview on Wednesday, this is a superpower that women have. And to put it aside is to lose whatever power you have in society, actually. Now, a younger woman answers her, and I want you to listen carefully to what she says. This is cut 9.
You're talking about a traditional nuclear family where the woman doesn't work in a married household with kids.
And statistically, that was the case.
You're a single woman who isn't married with kids yet.
So I'm for it because of the way it is. Most women were married by the age of 21 up until the 1970s.
I think it's a woman's choice. Before that, it was societally encouraged to marry young.
Yeah, and it was better for women mental health-wise long-term to be able to go into that long-term committed relationship and have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get a lunch break, you get health insurance, but do you have somebody who loves you staring at you every day like your child? No.
She sounds like me with a higher voice, but just go back and listen to what that young girl said, where she said, it's a woman's choice, but in the old days, society used to encourage you to do this. So she literally does not understand that society is now encouraging her not to do this. She thinks, oh, now it's just a blank space. But society is always there. It's always going to be encouraging you to do something. It's always going to have values. Our values are anti-feminine. They are anti-feminism. So she is being socially coerced. She thinks it's her choice. This is the thing, this is why, like George Washington, a champion of freedom, took him his whole life to figure out, oh, maybe black people would like to be free too. Here's this man of solid virtue who loves freedom, but he's surrounded by this social atmosphere, and she's surrounded by a social atmosphere, and like a fish in water, she doesn't know it's there. Feminists, who, as I say, are simply leftists in a skirt, they don't like femininity because they've accepted men's values. They see men have power, they make money, they win awards, and you don't get those things if you're a mom. And so they want that because, moms have different values. They have that value that she's talking about love, about sacrifice, about generosity, about building, about creation. That's what mothers are really about. They're about creation, not just creating bodies, but creating souls. Communists, the left, don't like women because they make homes and nurturing, and that's a power center that threatens the state. Capitalists may start out liking women, the feminine, but they don't like it eventually because they realize that they lose them out of the workforce, and that means the rich have less power because now you have to build an economy where one person can support an entire family. But the question is not, do they hate women? It is, why don't they love women? Why don't they love that there are women, that there are moms, that there are people who build homes? What is more important in life? What's the national game? baseball? What's the point of baseball? Getting home. What is the end of every great story? What's the end of the Odyssey, the foundational story of the West? Getting home. What is life about if not getting home? And who makes homes? Women do. Moms do. They make them for their children, and they make them for their husband, incidentally. Why don't they love that? Why don't they love it? Why don't we love the makers of our homes? Why don't we love the creators of our children? Why don't we honor motherhood as the highest thing that any human being can do? Christians do. We have Mother Mary. She's right up there. She's the queen of heaven, right? That's a very high position, I've heard. Why don't we honor mothers and homemakers with our lives and our words and our institutions? This is a really interesting thing. I've told the story before. I think Senator Ted Cruz was once giving a dinner, and I was there, and he went around the table and he was asking people, what do you know that no one else here knows? And I said, what I know is that the people in Hollywood don't work for money, they work for love. Because I'm an artist. When I try and get you to buy The Kingdom of Cain, yeah, I make my living writing books, and of course I want to make a living, but I could have done a lot of things that would make me a lot richer than I am today. I want you to love this. I want you to write to me and say, oh man, I read your book. I loved your book. That's how artists are built. That's how creators are built. And who are the model of all creators besides God here on earth? Who are the model of all creators? Moms. They work for love. And why don't we love them? You can't pay women. They've tried it. You can't pay women to have babies when you need babies. You can't pay them to do it. They won't do it. You got to love them when they do it. That's what artists work for. That's what mothers work for. And our society has stopped giving them that love. During this holy season, I'd like us to take a moment to think about something amazing, namely you. The book of Psalms tells us that God carefully knit you together in your mother's womb. He saw who you were meant to be before you even existed on earth. At PreBorn Ministries, they believe each person is made in God's image and that all life is sacred and eternal. Maybe not all pregnancies are planned, but that's okay. Whether planned or not, all life has incredible value, and God has a purpose for everyone each day they're here. Today, I invite you to thank God for the gift of life and to remember the babies still in their mother's wombs. Their lives matter too. Last year alone, PreBorn's network of clinics helped save over 67,000 babies from abortion. Your tax-deductible donation of $28 sponsors one ultrasound, which doubles a baby's chance at life. How many lives can you help save today? To donate, just dial pound 250 and say baby, or visit preborn.com/Klavan. Again, to make a donation and sponsor one ultrasound, visit preborn.com/KLAVAN. Thank you for supporting this life-saving work. Chapter 3, Does America Hate God? So, getting back to the most important thing today, which is that it's Good Friday. Good Friday, of course, is the day on which Christ was crucified. And some people don't know why it is called good, but it is called good, I think, in the sense of holy, but still it is called good because this is the day in which our sins are redeemed by the actions of the Son of God. Donald Trump, who is your president, put out, I guess on Truth Social, he put out a notice, and it said this: "This Holy Week," which is this final week before Easter, "Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of God's only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And on Easter Sunday, we celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. Through the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity. And in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. As we approach this joyous Easter Sunday, I want to wish Christians everywhere a happy and very blessed holiday. America is a nation of believers. We need God. We want God. And with his help, we will make our nation stronger, safer, greater, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. Thank you and happy Easter." Now, this is what I want to hear from my president. I don't want to hear hatred from my president. I don't want to hear him dissing anybody, who believes differently than I do. I just want to hear him affirming where we come from. It is urgently important. There's always this argument about, is this a Christian country? And the answer is yes, but in a very strange way. According to our Constitution, the government can't choose which religion to celebrate. Antonin Scalia, the great Supreme Court justice, made the case that it can choose to honor God, but it can't choose to favor one religion over another. Why? Because we are a Christian country. Because Jesus said, for the first time, I don't think you can find this anywhere else. I should probably ask my son. He's more scholarly about the classical world than I am, certainly. But I don't think anyone ever said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God's. And when you look at the Middle Ages, it is all a clash between the church's power and the power of kings. And because of that, we have freedom of religion. Before that, this is why the Christians were persecuted. Before that, under paganism, religion and the state were one thing. You had a state religion and you followed that religion because the state wanted you to, and that's why they killed the Christians. Because the Christians said, no, we will render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, our taxes, we'll obey the laws, but we will not render unto Caesar what is God's, which is our souls and our sense of the good and the moral. We have a division between church and state because we're a Christian country. But still, this is, I think, if I get to do one more thing before I'm carried off into eternity, it will be to convince people of this simple syllogism. If God exists, then he is the center of reality. You can't ban him from conversations. You can't ban him from the public square. You can't keep him out of schools. Yes, it is right in a Christian country not to favor one religion over another because it is a Christian country, but you should be talking about what God wants us to do. And there are differences between religions, but there are also a lot of similarities between religions. And what I want is a secular government run by believing Christian men. I want them to be Christian men, but still, I will settle for people who believe that God is a loving God. I'll settle for that. That's not much to ask. A secular government run by people who believe in God. And instead, we've got these clowns who say things like, we don't discuss God in the Senate. They have said these things. We do not discuss God in Congress because that's not our business. Well, no. If God is real, then he is the center of reality, and we cannot understand reality without saying. See, we've been talked out of all this stuff. We've been told that you don't have to hate God, but do not love God. It's the same thing. It's like you don't have to hate America, but don't you love America because then you're a nationalist. You don't have to hate women, but don't you dare love that they're women because then you're excluding gay people and you're excluding the transgender people. And we've been told you don't have to hate God, but do not love God. And I'm the first person to call out these hateful people when they use God slogans like Christ is King. As I've said a million times, Christ is King, but that doesn't mean that people aren't using that slogan in an evil way. And I call them out because they are violating Christian law, which says basically do not use the Lord God's name in vain. But still, I want people to love God because it is creation. We were created to love our country. We're created to love the fact that there are two genders, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here if we didn't love the fact that there were two genders. We should love the way that we were created because we should love the Creator. And if there's any time to think about this, it is on Good Friday when God showed his love for us in the most extraordinary way. And I will close with talking about that. Tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. The good news is that there's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Klavan. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. All you need is how to spell Klavan. It's like this.
And there are no E's in Klavan.
Final chapter, Good Friday is good. So Eric Anderson on X posted a wonderful sermon by a preacher in Cleveland, Ohio named Alistair Begg, and I had never heard of him, which is on me. People are always saying to me when they get angry at me, they say, "I never heard of you," and I think, why is your ignorance my problem? And so my ignorance is not Alistair Begg's problem, but he is an excellent preacher, judging by this clip posted by Anderson. And what he's talking about is when you get to heaven, if you think the reason you are in heaven is because of something you did, you are wrong. It is not because of something you did. It was something that was done for you. And he talks about the thief, one of the thieves who were on the cross. Christ was crucified. There were 3 crosses. In the center was Jesus Christ. On one side was a thief, and on the other side was a thief. And one of these thieves, I think he's named by tradition Ditmas, but that is just tradition. That's not in the Bible. And one of them mocks him. One of the thieves mocks Jesus, and the Ditmas says, "No, let me, please remember me when you get to your reward." And Christ turns to him and says, "On this day, you will be with me in paradise." And he says, and this is what Alistair Begg, this is a little bit of a long clip, but it's worth listening to. This is what Alistair Begg says about the thief who went to heaven.
Think about the thief on the cross. And what an immense, I can't wait to find that fellow one day to ask him, how did that shake out for you? Because you were cussing the guy out with your friend. You'd never been in a Bible study. You never got baptized. You didn't know a thing about church membership. And yet you made it. You made it. How did you make it? That's what the angel must have said, like, what are you doing here? Well, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, because I don't know. Well, excuse me, let me get my supervisor. They go get the supervisor ranger. So, just a few questions for you. First of all, are you clear on the doctrine of justification by faith? The guy said, "I never heard of it in my life." And what about? Let's just go to the doctrine of Scripture immediately. This guy's just staring, and eventually, in frustration, he says, "On what basis are you here?" And he said, "The man on the middle cross said, I can come." Now, that is the only answer.
That's the only answer. Amazing, moving sermon. Good Friday may be the most moving holiday for me, more than Christmas, more than Easter, because it's a holiday about despair. We know the ending of the story. If we read ahead, we know the ending of the story, but they didn't. The people who were following this guy, who believed in this guy, who thought this guy was bringing the end of days, this guy was bringing the liberation of Israel from the slavery of the Romans, this guy was bringing something incredible. Watching him, it's like the electric chair. He was killed in this incredibly shameful, incredibly painful way, with people laughing at him and pointing at him. He's such a great, powerful guy. Why can't he come down from the cross? Utter despair. And even the people who followed him and loved him ran. They ran for their lives. Peter saying, I never saw this guy in my life, because he didn't want to get arrested and killed, right? So they even realized that even the people who loved him were not up to standing with him. Now listen, I know about despair. In my youth, I had terrible problems for a while, and I despaired. And I wrote about this in my memoir, The Great Good Thing. And it was funny, when I wrote The Great Good Thing, which was about my conversion to Christianity, I was shocked to find out how many times on the page I could see that God was standing right next to me, speaking to me through some person. And so often the person would be named Christ or Kristen or Christiane, something. It was so stupid. I thought, how did I miss that? How did I miss that he was right there? And the answer is the same thing, the culture. The culture, I was a Jewish guy from the coast. I was an artist. I worked in New York. I worked in LA. I worked in London. I worked in the places where people simply do not say, oh, yes, that's obviously about God. Oh, yes, God wants us to do this. And so I didn't know. I couldn't see. You can't see what you're looking at. I wrote a piece the other day of talking about an experiment they did where you're told to look at a guy passing a basketball. And in the middle of this, a guy in a gorilla suit runs through and nobody saw him because they were not looking for him. That is a society we live in now. We are looking at something else, something we're told to look at. And the guy in the gorilla suit, we're not seeing him. And the guy in the gorilla suit is God. So how do you find him so that you're not in despair? Because terrible things happen in the world, and conservatives happen to be given to despair. After the crucifixion, two followers of Christ were walking on the road to Emmaus, and Christ appeared beside them, and they didn't recognize him because after his resurrection, a lot of people didn't recognize him. And he took the Bible and he explained to them how the Bible, the Old Testament, this is the Jewish Bible, predicted he was coming. He took their book, he took their oldest traditions, he took their deepest religious beliefs and showed them how they all pointed to him. And then they broke bread with him. And the minute they broke bread, because that was the first communion, essentially, well, it was not the first because the Last Supper was, but it was the first communion after the resurrection. They saw him, they recognized him in the breaking of the bread as we do today when we take communion. Going back to the great works, the reason I talk about our literature, our art, Shakespeare, the reason I write a book like The Kingdom of Cain, where I talk about the movies that we see, is because all good art, all good true stories, all true stories will lead you back to God, every single one of them. And we should look at those stories. We've been taught, I could go on about this forever, but I won't. The way they teach literature, the way they talk about movies, the way critics talk about movies, they never talk about how the presence of God is revealed in any true movie. And in The Kingdom of Cain, I take movies like Psycho and Silence of the Lambs, like I said at the beginning, I take movies where you think like, no, there's no sight of him. And I show you, yes, there is. There is something to learn about God in all of these things. So this is the day on which we remember that sometimes we lose hope. And conservatives, I've been saying this ever since I got mixed up with you crazy conservatives. I've been saying that conservatives are the first people, because you become a conservative because you see how delicate the social fabric is. You see how any thread that comes loose could make the whole suit fall apart. And yet, as Burke taught us, we have to believe in change because change will come. And so what Burke said is we want change according to our traditions. We want our traditions to move into modernity with us. That is the whole idea of conservatism. Don't let things go, but move into the new world. But conservatives, because they can see how the suit can fall apart from one loose thread, they immediately think it's over. You listen to them. Listen to yourself sometimes. You'll say, like, it's done. This country's done. Everything's done. Oh, my God, now they're done. Oh, Lord. Oh, my Lord. Oh, Obama's elected. We're finished. It's never finished. It is never, ever finished because the things that we are trying to defend are eternal. The things that we are trying to defend are eternal values. And so to women who've despaired of creating life and finding marriage and finding love and building a home and being what in their secret heart they want to be, not what society has told them they want to be. To men who have given up on searching for honor, who's sitting around scrolling through thinking, well, I'm struggling with my addiction, instead of stopping watching that garbage, and that have forgotten their decency and have forgotten their responsibility to love and protect women instead of listening to clowns like Andrew Tate telling you that you can dominate them and hurt them, which is true, by the way, but not what you want to do if you are a true man. Remember that despair, this is the message of Good Friday, despair is a form of ignorance. Giving up on the best things in your life is a form of ignorance. And it sounds like wisdom because it shows us the ugly truth of the world, but it blinds us to Easter. It blinds us to the beauty of heaven, which is visible in the beauty of the world. And in heaven, all things are possible with God. all things are possible. And to anyone out there who has given up on the hope of heaven, let me tell you this. The man on the middle cross says you can come. So remember this at Good Friday and have a wonderful, wonderful Easter, and we will keep on with the Klavan Klapbacks. America is on the comeback trail, but the fight for truth is far from over. While the left tries desperately to keep its grip on media, education, and the courts, DailyWire is leading the charge for free speech, fearless journalism, and the values that made our country great. Now is the time to join us. Stream my show ad-free and get exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Watch anytime, anywhere on desktop, mobile, and TV with the DailyWire Plus app. Be part of the movement. Subscribe now at dailywire.com/subscribe and join the fight. Klavan Klapbacks.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren.
Das war ein Befehl! Wer sind Sie? Dass Sie es wagen, sich meinen Befehl zu widersetzen! Yeah!
That was the administration at Harvard. So Klavan Klapbacks at DailyWire.com. That was a cruel opening about Harvard. They so deserved it, and it was just a joy to do. Klavan Klapbacks, Klavan with a K, Klapbacks with a K. Klavan Klapbacks at DailyWire.com. Write in. We love to hear from you. We really do. You can ask about your personal life. You can ask about politics. You can ask about the show. You can disagree. You know, we'll laugh at you, but still, you can disagree. We love to hear from you. Klavan Klapbacks at DailyWire.com. This is from Sarah. I seek the comfort and wisdom only Klavan can provide. Over the years, I have listened to you speak beautifully about how fortunate you have been in your marriage. I have the same good fortune. My husband is my soulmate. He has been my protector, provider, and my safe harbor through everything. I am deeply and devotedly in love with him in return. How can heaven be heaven if he is not to be my other half there? I feel childish asking the question. I know I am foolishly clinging to what it is instead of embracing the glory beyond with my whole heart. Yet it feels cruel to bless me with this person exactly right for me, only to have him in this short life and not in the next. With appreciation for all you do, Sarah. I guess this is based on in the Gospels. Jesus says, in heaven, people are not given and received in marriage. There's no marriage in heaven. But I've never read that to mean there is no uniting in heaven. I just imagine it to mean that the ceremonies, the rituals that connect us to heaven, that connect material life to heaven, are no longer necessary because somehow they happen more naturally and completely. That's always the way I've read it to mean. But in a larger sense, I have to say that if you're worried about what heaven is going to be like, you're probably worrying too much. Because it's heaven, right? It's going to be fine. Whatever it is, it'll make sense to you when you get there, and it'll be great. And so I don't think you're going to lose the love of your life. My wife is, in fact, my soulmate. Weirdly, I think someone else is probably her soulmate. No, I'm joking. But she is my soulmate. And because she is my soulmate, I imagine when I am a soul, she will still be mated with me, or else I don't know how I'll live, because who will feed me? And so, worrying about heaven is worrying too much. I mean, I'm sorry. That's just worrying too much. Focus on your life, live your life, enjoy the love in your life. You're incredibly blessed to have this marriage, as I well know, and don't worry about something that is going to be great. It's a waste of this moment to worry about something that's going to be absolutely exactly what it should be, and you will know it when you see it. From Heather, I really appreciate your perspectives on culture, art, politics, and religion. I really like the segment where you suggested a short story to read, then discussed it on the next show. Yeah, a lot of people, by the way, have been writing in to say they like that, and I'm going to do it again. Not next time, but I'll do it. I'll announce it next time. While I really enjoy the classics, I know I miss a lot without having much historical and philosophical context. When I read this Tolstoy story, Alyosha the Pot, I thought it was interesting and tragic, but that's about all I got out of it. And your commentary helped me get more meaning from the story, and I really appreciate it. Can you please recommend how I can go about reading classic literature to get more out of it? Sincerely, Heather. First of all, I think that if you don't have problems with the language, like some people have problems with Shakespeare's language because it's so archaic, if you don't have problems with the language and you can read this book and enjoy it, you should read it first and then enjoy it, and then read about it and see if the things that people are saying actually meet with your sense of the story. And that will, even arguing against them, will enrich your sense of the story. You can also, my daughter, Faith Moore, has a podcast called Story Time for Grown-Ups, where she reads classic books and explains them as she goes. I mean, she reads the book, but she'll also say, well, this means this, and this word means this, and this was the custom at the time. And then at the end, she'll even discuss deeper themes. So that's Story Time for Grown-Ups, which I highly recommend. She's got a lot of talent, so it's worth listening to just for that. But there's plenty of books on these things, and you should read the old ones because the modern ones have lost their way. But read the story first if you can and enjoy it. And it's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I didn't see that before. Now this guy has explained it to me. And, those great courses that she mentions in the letter, listening to the great courses, those are good lessons and do help a lot. So find interesting, especially old-fashioned criticism that explains things after you read it, if you can. From Edward Stafford, when you pick a fight with a ruthless dictator of a powerful nation, best not to attack your friends and allies at the same time. He's talking about Trump's tariffs. He realized this late and has climbed down, but is pretending it was prearranged strategy, as he does all the time. Happy Easter. Yeah, I disagree with you, Edward. I think he does it all the time because it's his way of negotiating. His way of negotiating is, I'm going to pick you up by your ankles and slam your head into the concrete. And you say, don't do that. Let's negotiate. And he goes, okay. That's his way of negotiating. All right. To those of you who are not members, this is the one time of year, maybe the one of two times of year, when you won't be plunged into clavenless darkness because the light of Christ is kind of brighter than the clavenless darkness, I got to admit. But still, that's no reason not to become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. If you are already a member, come to Member Block. If you're not, become a member, then come to Member Block.